Were you ever on a team that traded away a player like that?
Okay, great question there, Foxy. So that first regime I was with, the Peyton Manning, Bill Polian regime, not a lot of trades. Wasn't a lot of trades, not a lot of extensions on contracts until your time was up. It was just very much like cut and dry. Here's what you signed for, you play, you leave. And that team had been together for 13 years at the time whenever I got there. Winningest decade in NFL history. I was at the tail end of that. Very cool to kind of watch them operate. Then we got to the next regime, where Chuck came in and the new GM came in, and there was a lot of trades. They're trying to bring in big people. They're trying to bring in big names. They're overpaying some people, missed on a couple people, drafted a couple of terrible drafts. And then you're trying to save everything you can at that point. You're kind of grasping for straws like you're a fantasy owner almost. You're like, let me bring that. Let me see what we got. And there was a trade of A.Q. Shipley. And A.Q. Shipley, who's now the center for the Arizona Cardinals, good friend of mine, was a pretty well-liked guy in the locker room. I mean, AQ, you listen to him on our show, you listen to him in real life. He's a barbarian, he's a meathead, but he's a hilarious one. I mean, he's just he's a round Michelin man who's not supposed to be in the NFL for as long as he is, and he is. And he's a funny guy, he's well-liked in the locker room, and he was performing at a very high level for us, but there was money being given to another person at the same exact position. So, in our eyes, what it appeared was to save the confrontation of money over performance, they traded AQ out, even though he was performing well, in favor of somebody that they chose to pay instead of AQ. So whenever that trade happened, the entire team was like, what the hell is going on here? It was almost like a little mini revolt inside the locker room. And Chuck had to call us up at the end of practice. And normally, by the end of practice, Vinatieri and I would be inside lifting so that when the guys came in, they could have the weight room to themselves. And we would just meet them in the team meeting after practice, like 30 minutes after practice. We were told, everybody, all hands on deck, out on the field after practice. Chuck would like to talk to the team. So Chuck calls us all up after practice. We're sitting in there, and everybody still at this point is like, man, what the hell's going on? Are we really trying to win games here, or what are we trying to do? Just protect egos? Like, what's going on? And Chuck said, listen, guys, something happened today. We all know what it is, okay? Business, this is the way the business is, and you just have to trust the process. You just have to have blinders on, and you just have to trust the people who are paid to make these decisions, that they're making the right decisions. And in high school, when a coach says something to a player, the immediate reaction is, oh, he's the coach. He's making it right. He's smart. He's been around football longer than we have. That's probably an accurate assessment. In college even, you're like, you know what? This guy gave us a scholarship. If he thinks something's accurate, it's probably. But when you're in the professional level and you're at the NFL, you've been around football a long time too. Your football IQs are very high. You're basically working with the coaches as opposed to working for the coaches. This is much more of a, we are peers. Yes, they still design the schedule. Yes, they still discipline. Yes, they do all that. But you're talking about peers more so than talking down to people. So whenever Chuck goes, you just have to trust the process. A lot of people are like, yeah, we don't. yeah, hey, I just want to let you know, we don't. And we don't know how long a lot of these guys are going to be able to play. And you're kind of wasting our careers making these ego-driven decisions. And Chuck had to really manage that. That was the situation where I had to, that was the first time I really saw Chuck have to try to, because Chuck is a very good speaker. He's like a stand-up comedian. He can rally the troops, which I think he'll do with the Bears defense, especially after they've fallen off a little bit. That was the first time, though, where I've seen people look back at Chuck and go, bull. Don't say that to us. We don't trust the process.
Well, I assume at that level, it's your money too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We're trying to succeed as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, we trust what? That the better guy just got shipped out of town strictly because you paid a different guy? We know that, Chuck. We're not a bunch of idiots, all right? I don't know how much vitamins I got to smoke to figure that. I don't know how dumb you think we are. But a lot of us were just like, come on, Chuck. And then obviously, you slowly have to get over it because a game comes. And you can't really dwell on anything because the game comes and you'll get exposed, you'll get embarrassed no matter what position you're at. So the train just keeps on moving and you don't really have a chance to react anymore. It kind of just becomes a story of the past, which is everything in this world. As soon as something more important pops up, the things of the past are forgotten about. And in the NFL, it's a new game, it's another team, it's a new schedule, it's this, it's that, it's that. So that moment, though, I remember very vividly, like walking out there and everybody looking around in the huddle around Chuck, and we're like, yeah, we don't trust the process. We don't trust the person that's making the decisions. We think we have eyes, and we know AQ isn't getting paid a damn thing. You see how cheap those tattoos look? He's leasing a car right now. That guy's living in an apartment. We know it's not a business decision. We know that he's not getting paid a lot of money. We know it's not because you don't want to pay him. We know his contract isn't up. This is strictly because of an ego decision. That is it. And it was a tough one for Chuck to handle. He had to do it. These are things that happen in the NFL. In the Lions locker room, it seems to be happening right now. Matt Patricia's going to have that same conversation today. But once again, he can't dwell on it for too long because there's a game coming. If you get exposed and embarrassed on Sunday, you're going to get cut instead of worrying about somebody else getting traded, because at the end of the day, it's a business, which is exactly what they say when they trade people. It's an interesting situation, though, for sure.